To assist households that are unable to pay rent and utilities due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the U.S. Department of Treasury directed $46 billion to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program through the Consolidated Appropriations Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. The Michigan State Housing and Development Authority set aside $620 million of those federal funds to help tenants facing pandemic-related hardships to avoid eviction while also making sure landlords can recoup owed rent through Michigan's COVID Emergency Rental Assistance, or SARA program, that's administered through local nonprofit agencies like Lakeshore Legal Aid. Who is it for? What is it supposed to do? Give me the rundown, the basics of, and what can people expect?
The SARA program is actually a follow-up program to what was called the Eviction Diversion Program that was in place in 2020. And so the SARA funding provides a couple of different things. So one is it pays for legal aid attorneys to represent tenants on a limited basis. And then there is the rental assistance. It pays for rent that could go back to March 2020 until today. You could be eligible for future rent. So that could be 3 months of future rent. But if you're still having a financial crisis after those 3 months, you can recertify and potentially get even more rental assistance going forward. It also pays for back utilities and forward utilities, and it also will pay for internet expenses.
Forms needed for assistance include a completed SARA application, past due rent notice, the most recent lease agreement in the tenant's name, and all utility statements the tenant is responsible for, including an internet bill if applicable.
One of the main differences, though, is that a case doesn't have to be in court to be able to access these funds. Somebody doesn't even have to have necessarily a notice of eviction, just a notice that says you're behind, and that's enough for people to start in the system.
How would someone find out or know if they are eligible for this assistance? You said something about a portal, but is there another, basic earmark that like, oh, hey, I'm having trouble with this, I'm probably eligible for this program?
Yeah, so it's for people who live below 80% of the area median income. And so we know for like a single person, that means that you make less than $55,000 a year. And I think the number in Detroit is that it's almost 90% of residents would qualify for this program.
Obviously, the amounts that people get, I'm sure, will vary based on what their needs are, but where does the money come from? And is there any responsibility for people who receive this help to pay it back, or are there tax implications that they need to be aware of going into this?
So the money it came from the federal coronavirus relief fund. So all the money comes from the federal government and it's passed through the state MSHA, but it's available. It's not anything that anybody has to repay. It's not taxable. And one of the best parts about it is, for the landlord's perspective, they don't have any obligation, right? They don't have to, in prior programs, they had to take a percentage off. They had to forgive some sort of rent that they owed, that was owed to them, but now they don't. Under this program, it's 100% of the back rent that in the time period of COVID, and they can take that and just eliminate that back rent that was owed. So it's really an easy process. And it's also, the income is the only restriction. That's it. If you are behind in your rent and you meet that income restriction, it's available. And it's just a matter of going through the process.
What you're telling me is, if you're already behind on your rent, or if you know you're going to be behind on your rent, if you have been served some sort of eviction notice or the eviction process is already started, all of those scenarios, you guys are still able to help people manage that stuff through this program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so we're lawyers, so we get involved, right? So we get involved kind of once the court process is triggered. But our community partners, the HARAs, the Housing Resource Agencies, we work really closely with them. And so they will work in the beginning of that process if it's outside of court.
Is there a technical reason, or are landlords still technically allowed to evict people right now? Is there still, a reason for them to be able to initiate that process?
So they're able to initiate the eviction process pretty much in any circumstance. There are some things that prevent it right now from actually taking place, where the bailiff comes for people to move. And that is the CDC declaration, which if you are being evicted and a bailiff shows up at your house, you can show a CDC declaration that says, I qualify under this program. I'm not able to be evicted at this time. The main problem with that is that it expires at the end of July. And it has been extended a couple of times, but we expect this to be the end at this point. So that's one piece. The other is if there is a SARA application that's been submitted and they're in the process, the Michigan Supreme Court has issued an order that says an eviction shouldn't go forward because they're in the SARA process.